Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are and wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making this a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, a creative content writer here in Chesterfield. I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Sometimes when you run a podcast for a government agency such as Chesterfield County, there are going to be a handful of things that you are going to talk about that you never really expected to talk about. And today is one of those days for me. I can honestly tell you that I did not expect to do a podcast about recycling, but as I dug more into this topic, and certainly it's one that a lot of residents in Chesterfield County have a lot of questions about. And I'm really glad to have John Neal, who is our Director of General Services here on the podcast. John, how are you?
Doing well.
I don't know if you ever expected to be sitting across from somebody on a podcast talking about recycling, but that's what we're going to do today because, like I said, it's a very important question and certainly like one that a lot of folks are very curious about right now. Now, to set the scene for you, residents at this point should have received a letter from the county that kind of explains a lot of the things we're going to talk about today. If at any point you have questions, you can feel free to either look at that letter or chesterfield.gov/recycling, which answers a lot of different questions. John, before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about sort of your background, how it is that you came to be on this very podcast talking about recycling. What's your background and what brought you to Chesterfield?
Been here since February of 2022. Okay. And just had the opportunity to come here and work in general services, but I've done some other work in other localities in general services. Okay. And just enjoy the work. I enjoyed building things, maintaining things, seeing things come together, seeing plans come together. Right. And that's what general services does. Mm-hmm. So I thoroughly enjoy what we do for the county.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the way it sort of fits, what you do, and certainly this question around recycling and kind of what the county is trying to do here, I want to take folks back a little bit. Well before you arrived in February, because this is a relationship that Chesterfield has had with the CVWMA, since its inception in 1990, and obviously as being one of those 13 partners, recycling in Chesterfield had gone pretty well for a while, but it seems like as time sort of went on, the cost associated with it kind of got out of balance with things, and I'm just curious from your point of view. Before we start to talk about the changes that are coming down the road, I'd like to look back, and if you could kind of help take me through a little bit sort of the background here and how we sort of arrived at the situation of needing to make some changes to the program.
Right. So we started out in 1991 with the original contract with CVWMA, and then as things progressed in the late 2000s, early 2010, we had to change our financial model, and we implemented a $25 fee to offset the cost, so that we weren't subsidizing the program. Right. So with that cost, we started out with that, and then later on in 2020, we had a significant change in the recycling market where localities were not able to send their recycling materials overseas.
The folks who were buying the stuff were no longer buying the commodity, right?
So that increased our cost, and we made another change in 2020 to make it a $40 fee, and then also gave the residents an opportunity, if they wanted to opt out of the program, they could do so. Right. And then new participants to the program would have to be opted in. They would have to physically opt in, as opposed to being automatically opted in. So it gave them an opportunity to, if they wanted to participate in recycling, they could do so. But that cost is set to really offset the cost of the recycling program.
Right. So for 20 years, the cost was baked into the budget. The taxpayers didn't have to pay like any additional fees. And in 2010, households started having to pay a $25 fee so the program would break even, which was the whole point, right? The county just wanted to cover the cost. Then in 2020, the program was projected to cost approximately $1 million because of the collapse of the overseas recycled commodities in order to get to that place of balance. And that's where that $41 fee came from. So essentially, over the last 30 years, it's gone from being paid for in the budget with no fee for folks to needing to have a $25 fee to offset that cost, then needing that fee to increase to $41, which is where things were heading into the end of the contract, which comes in 2023. Now, as everybody sort of knows, right, costs of a lot of things have gone up. What was kind of behind the decision that the CVWMA made to evaluate all the options? Were they seeing this across the board in other localities too? Were other localities having the same sort of questions that we were about how the program could, what the next steps were because of the costs associated with it?
So what it brought what brought this to where we are today is that the original contract was expiring.
Okay.
And so we had to do another solicitation,
Right.
Resolicit the contract. But the original contract was set up to have based on assuming that everybody would participate.
Right.
And we broke away from that model several years ago.
Right.
And so we asked CVWMA to do a special solicitation just for Chesterfield County.
Okay.
And then that solicitation, the prices we received, the quotes we received back on that were significantly higher than the market research that we have done that gave us the indication that our prices will be lower than what they were received for solicitation.
And so in the course of getting that information, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is that as that information came in, it became clear that folks could save a lot of money if they went to a third-party option versus I think it was going to cost like $200 or something, some annual cost per household.
Absolutely. So the annual cost was anticipated to be about $113 annually per household. But that was just for single-family households.
Right.
And so we decided to take the approach of allowing the private vendors, the private haulers, to provide the service, but that also expands our profile where we can do multifamily housing, apartments, townhomes, condominiums, incorporating the business community into the program as well. And we just see a really strong effort of being able to broaden our scope and broaden our market. And have it at a reasonable cost, much lower than what was quoted through the CVWMA contract.
Right. So instead of, I know for a lot of folks that $41 sort of lingers in their mind, right? But realistically, if Chesterfield had not taken the step to bring in the third party haulers, they're looking at an increase from $41 to like $113, and that's if we contract for 100% of the households opting in, which we know would include charging a lot of people who aren't going to use it, since we currently only have like 60% of people who are opting in. If we counted only those folks who opt in, that fee would have increased to about $200 annually, right?
Correct.
Instead, what the county seems to be doing, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but is to allow the third-party market to sort of decide what that fee was and let them sort of vie for people's businesses.
Right. That open competition, I think it's going to really drive the price market. And we see that as a benefit to the residents and to the community. So having that opportunity to compete, choose your vendor, either package it up with your existing trash hauler or choose another hauler that provides both services. That bundled feature really, I think, will pay benefits to the citizens.
Now, in terms of the information you guys got back from the various, and I know that in the letter I believe there are 5 different haulers who are mentioned and referenced in the letter. You might be, if you're watching this version of the show, you're probably seeing on your screen now. For those who are listening, it's Choice Waste, GFL Environmental, Tidewater Fiber Corp, Waste Management, and Zan's Refuses Service. I'm just curious, in the information that you got back from them, what's the expectation on their level of maybe buy-in's not the right word, their excitement about being able to bring this to the folks of Chesterfield and being able to vie for that market?
Yeah, they're all very excited about the program, and some have even reached out already to the citizens. So you'll see citizens will see communications from some of the vendors, some of the haulers, just letting them know that they're interested in getting their business. Right. So that support is definitely there from those 5 vendors. Right. And we look forward to having that communication going out and continue to go out.
Right. Now, in terms of, obviously, you mentioned earlier your experience. You've been in this area for a long time. You're very aware of the other localities around Chesterfield. I'm guessing that every other locality is sort of in a similar position of trying to make the decision of what they're going to do. Have we heard, to this point at least, what other localities are expecting to do with their options on the table from the CVWMA?
So right now, the other localities are sticking with the original model, where they are spreading the costs amongst all their residents.
Okay. So instead of so what Chesterfield's essentially doing here, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like to me what Chesterfield's doing is basically making sure that the folks who aren't paying for it don't pay for it.
Correct.
People who do want to use it are paying the lowest price because they're not subsidizing the people who don't have it. Because I think, and there's another mention of this in the letter, right? The idea that if there was another model on the table that was for Chesterfield to do 100% of all the households, that essentially the people who were opting in would have been paying for the people who were opting out because they would have been included in that even if they were not getting the service. So it sounds like to me this is a really good deal for Chesterfield residents. And in terms of the information that you've received, it certainly feels like this was, I don't want to say an easy decision on the county's part, but I'm just curious what went into the thought process to go this route. Was it strictly just based on the cost to the resident and sort of the services provided?
So the cost to the residents is one of the main concerns, making sure that we're have given a fair cost to the citizens and to the customers.
Right.
But a lot of thought went into this, a lot of research, market research data to really gauge what the market would be, what that private market would be for the recycling costs. And we feel that we've landed on a good spot where we're providing not just one option, but at least five options for our citizens to choose from, and then also provide that opportunity for them to bundle their services where you can get economies of scale. And that is a huge factor that played into our decision.
Yeah, and you mentioned, that's a good question I should ask. These are five that are currently involved, but is there anything stopping a sixth, a seventh, and eighth?
No, if there are others that want to join in, certainly give us a call and let us know, and we'll get your information on the website and make sure that you have the same access that the other five vendors have.
Good deal. Now, I mentioned before that folks should have at this point received the letters about recycling. One of the other things is they're going to receive another letter down the road because, again, this is all going into 2023. And I want to focus on this real quickly, that in June of 2023, half of the existing fee, so it's $20.50, will be charged to anybody who uses a service between January 1st and June 30th. So for anybody who wishes to avoid paying for that fee, if that's something you don't want to do next year, make sure that you opt out. And I believe it's by March 1st, if that's correct.
By March, right.
And so you can either do that by going to the online form that's at chesterfield.gov/recycling, or you can give them a call, 804-748-1297. And I believe you guys are going to send another letter out to folks prior to that date so they can kind of be reminded of it.
Right. A smaller mailer, just to kind of give them a summary of where things are. Just a reminder, if you do want to opt out, here's your window to opt out. And also a reminder about who the vendors are, who the providers are. Now,
last thing, John, one of the things I thought was interesting in reading the letter was the mention that Chesterfield's going to take the funding that would have gone into the program and use that in a different way, kind of around educational efforts. And I'd like to just, see if you could speak to it, kind of what the county's plan is for that part of the piece of the budget that would have gone to that.
The big thing out of all this change, one, being able to provide a more economical service, but we're still part of CVWMA. And I think that's very important to let people know that we're still part of that authority. And we're going to use their benefits of the education programs and the community engagement programs to help promote recycling and other environmental efforts that CVWMA is a part of. So even though we're not doing the recycling part, we still participate in the overall education. The outreach to the schools, outreach to the community is very important to keep our recycling efforts sustained and growing.
Right.
So that part of it, there's still a fee that's associated with that, and we're using that savings to pay for that cost.
And then also too, there's the option, and I guess this is last thing, right? To expand the current convenience center options, right? So for folks who either want to use this in conjunction with a hauler, or maybe they just want to do it this way, there has been some thought to looking at that. What's the time frame on any of those kinds of decisions, and what options are on the table?
So we're looking at the middle of 2023 to start implementing those efforts. But a couple of things we're looking at is opening the convenience centers up 7 days a week, like they used to be several years ago. And then also making some changes on how the traffic flows into the convenience centers. I know the traffic on the weekend is quite a few cars busy, out there. Right. And so everybody's going in through one door, essentially. Now we're going to give two doors where the trash customers can go through one entrance and the recycling customers can go through another entrance, just to free up that space and separate that traffic. I think we'll get better flows. But the thing we're really excited about is going back to 7 days a week, providing that service, and then also separating the traffic. So we'll be able to process more people, make it more convenient for them. And we're also looking at the possibility of setting up other locations around the county where people, if they don't want to drive to the Northern Center or the Southern Convenience Center, we give them other options where we can provide some smaller drop-off locations.
Perfect.
So we're looking at that as well. Again, something that would be implemented after July of 2023.
Gotcha. Well, John, thank you very much for coming on the show and talking to us a little bit about sort of the recycling changes and kind of making sure we get that information out to people. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Make sure you can check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's at Chesterfield VA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield, Virginia, all one word. And on our Facebook, you can check out our podcast page. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Make sure to like that page so you can keep up with us as we go forward. Now, let me tell you about all the ways you can check us out. You can watch us over on our YouTube channel or on our website at chesterfield.gov/podcast. An audio-only version of the show is available there, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, and a whole host of other services. You can also watch the show on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on the weekends at noon. That's Comcast Channel 98 and Verizon Channel 28. And lastly, you can check out chesterfield.gov/connect with us for more ways to get in touch with us and for us to get in touch with you. My thanks to our director, Martin Stith, our executive producer, Teresa Boniface, and all the crew here in Communications Media for making this possible. Thank you very much for all that you do. And my thanks to you for listening to us today. So, from all of us here in Chesterfield, thank you very much for making us a part of your day. We'll see you again real soon. Take good care.